Hi, guys. And for those who came to Miami to Trump Doral, you'll remember Paula was there, Paula Woodley. She's been on what I would say in Charlie language, one hell of a journey. And she shared her story with my audience in Trump Doral in Miami. And I'll let her share the first part of her journey with you now, and then update us as to where we are today and where we've come from and where we're at right now. And some big things have changed, and a lot has progressed on this journey. It's a very, very interesting thing how an event can actually have an impact on a situation. And this is the whole idea of it, is to create change. So welcome, Paula. Good to see you. How are you?
Hi, Charlie. Good to see you too. I'm doing well. How are you? Good?
Yeah, good. Life is good. Life is getting better every day. There's so much going on. But tell my audience what happened at the start of your journey and where we are now.
Well, let's start here. Of course, everybody knows that I'm a nurse, and I think that's kind of given me an upper hand on basically cracking this case open and looking into it. So
Mhm.
I was very appreciative being able to come down to the Doral Trump and discuss this because I think this is what really has led to probably a wide opening, unbelievable event that exposed things that happen that in a trusted medical system that nobody actually would even expect. And if you don't have the background in medical, you really wouldn't know what they're doing or how they're doing this. But to get started with it, when I went down to Miami, I exposed a situation really that boils down to what we will refer to as Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Okay. And everybody knows that there's been questions about this, but now JD Vance just we'll rewind here and get to the back end in a minute. But JD Vance, our vice president, as you know, in the United States, had just last week, and I'm pretty sure that most people saw it because it was breaking news on CNN, that he is going to crack down on Medicaid and Medicare fraud.
That means that if you're committing fraud in Medicaid in Hawaii, at least up until now, hopefully now they're going to take it seriously, you have had effectively free reign from the government of Hawaii to commit as much fraud as you want. That is a complete disgrace. Today, we are sending across 50 Medicaid programs, we are sending letters that will require them to show that they are effectively and aggressively prosecuting Medicaid fraud in their states. And if they do not aggressively prosecute Medicaid fraud, we are going to turn off the money that goes to these anti-fraud units. We don't want to turn off any money. What we want to do is ensure that people are taking fraud seriously. We want to protect Medicaid. We want to protect Medicare. But we can't do that if the states that are administering those programs are allowing those programs to be fleeced by fraudsters.
And what's important about this, it's that my speech was targeting specifically the Medicare and Medicaid fraud in the state of Hawaii. Okay. And he had indicated that there's been zero prosecutions, which is very interesting, and that he and his team are moving in.
It is. And this is something that I had to learn very much the hard way, because I was waiting, like you've been waiting, for these cases to be in front of a judge. One of the things that I've had to learn is that a lot of these judges, and when I say a lot, I'm talking more than 90% of them, are complicit in the fraud. So the world had to see the crimes. They had to see what was going on. But also, before that anybody could be prosecuted, once they'd seen the crimes, they had to go through the process, and it is a process, of removing the corrupt judges. Now, that's one thing to remove corrupt judges. It's another thing to find replacements capable of doing the job without being compromised. And that is what we've been through over the last 2 or 3 years. The removal of the corrupt system, but then finding the right people so that we don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. And once these new judges are put in place, to make sure, as a number of people have said in the past, they can't be bought. Because if
Exactly.
you've got a price, then you can be bought. We got
Totally.
offered a ridiculous amount of money 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, for our channel. A ridiculous amount. It was never, ever in doubt with anybody in our team that we would ever sell it for anything, ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it needs to be. There are many, many people out there who have sold their soul. And not just
Totally.
in the truth community, in the medical community, in the political community, in the religious community, in every community. It's been infiltrated, and it's a very difficult situation, especially in your situation. But what
Oh,
we've managed to do is shine a light, as I said to my wife before I came on air. The darkness has always been there. We just never saw it because nobody was shining a light in that area. Now we can see it. It's scary. It's horrendous. It's always been there. Now we can see it.
I think that is totally, I can go into so many directions with that. And one of the things I have to say is that it's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe. But when you look at the situation and then you speak the truth, and of course, they don't want you to expose it because they don't want people to know what they're doing. But this is a business, okay? And what happened in Hawaii, I learned from the local peoples. People were telling me I would go to Hawaii every year, okay, for vacations. But this was told to me, I guess I was blindsided because I loved Hawaii, and this is what makes it the perfect crime, because who would think that these crimes would be committed in what we call a paradise, a tropical paradise? And that's the perfect place to put the crime because nobody would expect it. So they have suppressed it, okay, very well. And I don't think that people are aware, which we will get into further at another time, of how they orchestrated this, okay? This was well planned out. There's more than one person involved with this. Like you said, Charlie, these are judges. These are police officials, law enforcement. These are doctors. These are people in the community that we entrusted that are all working underhanded to pull this off. And when you look at it, you have to follow the money, okay? The reason that's important is because what JD Vance needs to know, this is not going to be an easy case for him to crack. This happened on an island of Oahu, okay? That's the second biggest island besides Hawaii. Now, this is a small island, but they've done a very good job. And the people of Hawaii, the locals, did not want this to happen. That's why they informed me. I worked in the federal government there. I worked at the federal courthouse as a nurse. I had inside information that I was getting that they didn't know where I was going with this. So I kind of put my own sting operation together, and I then just blew the whistle. See, what happened was then what they do is they got these, it's so orchestrated, like I said, you just wouldn't believe it, that you have to follow the money. And I was going to bring it to the media. Now, the media is, again, another topic altogether because the media is lying to the American people. Now, we know who owns the media, and that's another chapter altogether. But when I tried to expose that to the media, and the reporters wanted to take the story, but they thought, number one, this is going to affect a $16 billion industry. They didn't want this coming out. There is, now again, the people of Hawaii always will tell me they want their sovereignty back, okay? They have basically a case right now before the UN regarding the Lahaina fires, okay? All these things that they know that have gone on that are the truth that has been suppressed, okay? So what has happened is that they don't really have a voice because it's run by organized crime, okay? And that is really what has happened. It's infiltrated. And some of these people who don't go along with it can get hurt, okay? And they warned me when I exposed this. I was harassed. I was threatened. You have no idea. I'm lucky to be alive, to be honest with you, because what I exposed was they had said Pandora's box, and they tried to silence me. But we're talking about a topic here that was my mother, okay? And I would take a bullet for her.
Guess how many convictions or indictments has Hawaii had over the last few years in its Medicaid fraud program? The answer is 0. Not a single indictment, not a single conviction, because the administrators of the Hawaii program just don't take it seriously. They don't think that fraud is a big enough problem. They don't care about protecting resources. They don't care about protecting that Medicaid program.
So when I exposed this, they just didn't know what to do, how to silence me, because I had connections all over in the government and people that I knew. But the bottom line is this, okay? We won as the end game here. We won Medicare fraud and Medicaid. Now, this is a state-run fund program. Okay, this program, this money for Medicaid should go to the locals. Charlie, my mother wasn't a resident. My mother, when this is the biggest smoking gun, is how do they do this? They isolate you, they take you from your family, and guardianships is what I pointed out in Miami at the Doral Trump. Once they isolate you and they remove me from seeing my mother, okay, that was like, they have no idea what I was made of. Then they give me more, it pushes me harder, okay? So when they did this and they don't want you to see them, that's how they can carry this all out. So she wasn't eligible for any of this funding. That should be going to the local people. And J.D. Vance said he's going to go in. They have 0 cases, but they don't have 0 cases because I had a big case there and we won. But let me get to the end of that story. He's then going to defund them, their state funding, which should go to the local people. But the bottom line is that it's going to tourists, because the ombudsman said to me, it's a tourist trap in the respect that people go there. They're not residents. They take them, they put them into a hospital that was bankrupt, for example, in my mother's case, run by doctors who run long-term care facilities. And those long-term care facilities are $20,000, $30,000 a month. They did it to my mother, tapped into Medicaid. I immediately went to Medicaid. I said, she's not a resident here. And then they went crazy because I exploited the whole thing. Now, after this case was settled and done, which came to about, I would say, first of all, we filed a civil case, and then we filed the criminal case. And then when we won the criminal, the DOJ is supposed to prosecute. Okay. Now, the DOJ, as we know, is supposed to oversee the courts and everybody, but they're all connected there. So I had gone to the AG and I said, well, if we prosecute this in the state of Hawaii, we're not going to get anywhere, because even though it occurred there. So I filed the case in the federal district courts in Chicago, and it was accepted. Okay. And they were upset because they wanted jurisdiction. But again, what happens is this: the DOJ, I had to go to Hawaii to prosecute the Medicare. They sat on it. They sat on it for months and months and months. And this is what J.D. Vance is going to be looking for. Where were these prosecutions for this fraud? Because fraud in Hawaii is rampant, and they never reported those cases. So what happens? I hired private investigators. We found out the whole back end story of what they did and how they did it. And then they said, you can't have your private investigators. They used theirs. I had a hell of a guy who did a perfect job, was bringing them all down. He vanished. Nobody knows where he went. And we're going on 2 years into the case for a prosecution for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Gone. I said, well, where did he go? I won't mention his name here. But then they said he's no longer with the government. They wanted to start the case all over again. If J.D. Vance goes in, number one, what he's going to need to do is go into Hawaii and see how many of the people on that island come in on cruise ships, get sick, they're intubated. When they're intubated, that's the money machine starts going. That's when it all starts going with the money machine. Then once that goes, you have doctors there, one particular doctor that owns a long-term care facility there called, and then he then is the only doctor there. He owns it. That facility is not even up to code. That's never even had an OSHA inspection.
Or home Motel 6.
Yeah, Hotel 6.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've had
my
meditations in a thatched hut in Uganda.
And look at the clips that they have on it. Jesus, I can't believe it. For example, and these people are sitting there like ducks with a 10-inch tube down their throat, and they're siphoning off their Social Security, their pension, because they're cash cows is what it is. And nobody knows this. And I've been told by doctors that I knew that were some of my mother's doctors that she went for integrative medicine that also had said to me, this has been going on for years, Paula, but they shut it up because they don't want it to be exposed. So when I was down in Florida, thank God, and thank you, Charlie, for giving me that platform, because nobody's going to understand the back end story. And as Chella, our little angel from above now, has been watching over us here. She even had said when she finished her event down there, she was so proud of it, and she did a great job, that her favorite person was me. And we became very close for that reason. I think that she couldn't believe that this is the truth of what's going on.
We've got a lot of resources and we're working very hard on this. Some of the best stuff, whether it's Nick Shirley or whether it's you raising that with me, citizens have a role to play in this. And we've actually set up a fraud hotline where people can call in and suggest that maybe they're seeing things that are not totally above board, because to fix this problem, it's so deep-seated, it's so broad. We actually need everybody to raise this stuff. We need citizen journalists, we need, Fox News reporters, we need everybody to be asking ourselves the question, how do we root out this fraud? Because it's hard to fathom.
So, and I'm speaking from my heart, but my mission, if we can do anything with the White House, the administration, to give them this back end story, to tell them how they need to go in, because the chief of police, Louis Chiola, is public, was in prison. I don't know if he still is. The mafia, Mike Mischke, who was involved with this, who I got threats from.
Michael Mischke allegedly committed suicide to stop the federal government from completing forfeiture of more than $20 million in criminal proceeds. That according to a plaintiff filing in federal court. Mischke died from a drug overdose in prison in December of 24, where he was incarcerated for crimes including murder, racketeering, conspiracy, and other felonies.
Was in prison, but he was suicided now. He was supposed to be getting a life sentence. The medical examiner is gone, Dr. Happy, and all these people were named in my civil case, by the way. But you are talking not only, like I said, law enforcement, judges, attorneys, doctors. This was all orchestrated by organized crime to the highest level, which they don't want out because it's going to affect their tourism.
But they're filing an APS against me if I don't relinquish my guardianship by 5 o'clock in an hour.
That's dealing with the hospital's administration, hospital's legal team.
Correct.
But she's threatened. They're threatening her officer. She's being threatened to be arrested.
Well,
what did they say?
This was like a week ago. They said, well, if you took her out of the hospital, we would file an APS and have you arrested for engagement.
An officer, my mother is dying right now. They won't give her the medication she needs.
That what I personally believe is that it is so bad when you look at the sex trafficking, the adrenochrome. When I would talk to people about this, keep in mind, the reason I know about these things is because my father was top military. I learned about all of these things as a child, the deep state, the Zionists. These were taught to me as a child. So I thought everybody knew this. But the problem is that nobody believes it because they can't wrap their head around it, because it's so evil. And I keep telling people it's like a cult. You need to be deprogrammed. And now the people that I was telling these things happen, it's like, oh, Paula, you were right. But still, their mind is not programmed so that they can accept that this is so evil that it could happen. So they're in shock and awe now is what I think is happening. I think that they kind of, like you said, they want to be on our frequencies, but they're trying, but they're paralyzed now because they don't know. They know that they believe it, just like with the COVID, they didn't want to believe it. But then when it all was over, they believed it and they're questioning. So now we're starting this all over again, some people are saying, and they're like, we're not going to tolerate this, and it's like, these are like what Judy Mikovits would say, the pandemics. Well, you instill the fear, and when you have the fear, that's how you control a society.
It is. And what people don't realize, what we're going through right now is very much like what a sportsman or woman goes through. What people see on the day of the final is a finely tuned athlete competing at the highest level. What they don't see is it took 10 years to get there behind the scenes of hard work. And
true, so true.
Where we are right now is the opportunity to train, to get your body ready, to get your mind ready for what's coming. For those people who are ready, you'll see everything this year. For those who are not, you're going to have to play catch up next year, and it will feel like you're fighting a real tough battle into a headwind. At the moment, you've got people around who are willing to help you along. But no big deal. If you don't want to come with us, it's not a problem. It's your choice. But I'll tell you right now, next year will be far tougher for those who don't work on themselves this year. And most of my audience and your audience have been working on themselves for the last 5, 10, 15 years. They're more than ready, more than ready. And it's good to see.
Oh, totally,
And
totally. And go ahead.
people are now beginning to go, do you know what, Paula? Do you know what, Charlie? You were right. You were right. It's a pain in the butt to admit it, but you were right. Um, but
Totally.
then they still have a mountain of questions, which they didn't need any evidence for COVID. They rushed down to get their jabs. They rushed in for the next one and the booster. No evidence at all. Now they want mountains and mountains and mountains of evidence, just for the most simple things. And I've stopped telling people where I found the information, because if I tell them where I found it, they find the same as me. So there's no benefit. So the benefit is
Totally.
for people to work on themselves and to find out for themselves. Sorry, Paula.
Oh, you're right. Totally. I mean, I can't help intercept because you're just saying everything that, I mean, I can identify with. Like, again, a true professional looks professional, it looks easy because people don't look at how long it took to get there. And that's how they make it
Well,
easy. And I think the bottom line is that, like my mother would always say, is that knowledge is power. And
yeah.
you have got to give people the knowledge. And if they don't want to hear it like from me or you or anybody else, then you could show them where you got it from, for example, and say, well, these are the facts. You know, like if I read something, I would say, who wrote the article? Like even in medicine, is it written by the pharmaceuticals that are trying to tell us that this drug is good, or is it written by, you know, a journalist or a scientific program through the American Medical? Because the problem is, Charlie, is that we have so much information out there today, and the story is not the same story for the same movie. Okay, it changes, and people, they just don't know. When you hear one thing, this is good for you, and this is not good for you, who do you believe? And then meanwhile, when you are stuck and you're at your mercy, you go with what information they're telling you to. So it's to your disadvantage that you then become the victim. But I think that learning to be a critical thinker all my life, because that's the way I was taught. My father was also a boxer, and you get down 7 times, you get back up 8. And I was instilled with these principles. So I will go down fighting no matter what it is for the truth. So the bottom line is that I'm on a mission, and this mission is not about me. It's about my mother, because I think that my mother sent me here to do this mission, to expose this as a nurse, to be somebody that can be entrusted to tell the truth, to know the truth, and to then help to save people, to help save them from what she had to go through, because she wouldn't want anybody to see how she was tortured, isolated, and died alone on an island with no funeral. So this is the story that nobody can believe and wrap their heads around, because I don't know how I got through it. But when I had that platform with you and even with Sasha Stone is when I started my journey. I was so happy that I was able to tell my story and be healed, but to be able to help people also who are victims that don't know the truth. And if I can do anything to guide them, and you and I both, to get this exposed, to help the administration also, we are truth seekers. And that's what your conference was about, Charlie. And this is the epitome of what I think the topic is, to say this is 1 month now, or this month actually is 1 year from our journey down there. And when JD Vance exposed this on this anniversary of us being down there as truth seekers, I am so proud to be part of this. And if my voice can be heard, that's all that's important to me, to make a change.
It's so important. And you alluded earlier on in what you were saying there to the most important thing, that the most important question we all get asked is, so who do we trust? And the answer to that is incredibly simple. You trust God.
Totally.
And the hardest part is to learn, when you go within, to listen to God, to make sure it's God that's talking to you and not something else. That's the hardest part. And so first of all, you need to learn to listen to God, and then cross-reference what God is saying to you with people that you trust, that you know have a link, also have a personal link with God. Ask them to pray on the question that you've asked God, and see if God gives it, because God doesn't give two people two different answers. I can assure you. God
Totally.
is constant. So
Totally.
find people you can trust, and communicate with God. Go within for the answers. And the answers are always there within. The trouble is we've got so used to looking outside for the answers. And that's why we're up the creek without a paddle.
And you know what else, Charlie, is that knowledge is power. And what's the most important book to read? Just read the Bible. Read the Bible. People say to me, Paula, what you've been through, you've traveled the world. I've lived in Africa. I worked at the United Nations. Before this journey there, I worked with the Department of Defense for going on 5 years, overseeing the military bases. Where I have gotten to the height of my career was only because thanks to God and in believing in God. And like you said, when I can't do something, I just say, like my mother would say, just put it in the hands of God and he will carry you, Paula. And that's all I ever do. And God, and if you read the Bible, and anybody who has, and anybody who is successful will find out that there's your answers.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Paula. Great to see you, sweetheart.
I met really amazing people. I met my favorite person that I met was a nurse. She was my favorite person out of all of them, and she was amazing. But do you guys want to know a lot of the stuff that you guys are hearing, and we don't know if it's true or not? It's true. There's a lot of true stuff going on. It was eye-opening. Like, whoa.
A seasoned nurse, FEMA responder, and former UN International Nurse Manager, Paula Woodley, has dedicated her life to global crisis response. Get ready to be inspired by the powerful insights on resilience, healthcare, and human spirit. Please welcome to the stage, Paula Woodley.
Now, I don't know how many of you know, but guardianship is a law, okay? This is a law that was put into place basically in 1970s, which people need to look up. But who made this law? Your legislators and your senators. They made this law. What did they do? They never consulted the medical community. They never consulted nurses. What they have done is then the judges are the ones who will appoint a guardian. A guardian has 40 hours of training, and that's it. No more. And then you have your attorneys, okay? And the attorneys then, basically, what they do is they allow these guardians to make end-of-life decisions for your loved ones. This is the law. Now, they've been trying to pass, and I'll talk about in a minute here, some bills to change this legislation. But isn't it kind of funny? This never gets to Congress, never goes anywhere. So I think we know who's controlling all of this. But before I say that, let me give you a little background on who I am. My father was top military, okay? My mother was an IRS agent. I worked in the federal government. We know, and when we know, you know, okay? I know what's going on. I've seen my whole life. I've heard from my father about Operation Paperclip. I've heard about the cabal. I've heard about the deep state. Nobody wants to talk about this for some reason, but I went to all parochial schools. We know who's controlling things in this country, and it's been infiltrated everywhere. Now, I was on the comfort ship. Now, when I was on the comfort ship as a frontline nurse, I know a lot about COVID, which I wish I could get into. That's another topic altogether. But when I was in New York, I came back from the comfort ship. When I came back from the comfort ship, I didn't know what I was facing, okay? We saw people dying left and right, okay? Now, this is the truth, okay? However, I got involved after that with many of us. I don't think Sasha Stone is here today yet, but he'll be here tomorrow. And Sasha invited me, along with the Dr. Sandra Rose, who I met in Hawaii, who kind of discussed with me and briefed me on this guardianship. And I have a very close friend right now who has a case in the Supreme Court. But we have judges. She won the federal. She won the appellate. When it went to the Supreme Court, they reversed her case. That case is sitting there to fight for everybody to get this guardianship exposed, okay? Then what I was working on, getting back to Sasha, I met him through Dr. Sandra Rose. They asked me to speak before the tribunal. I've done about maybe 5 shows. Now, when I was doing that, of course, you have to be very careful what you talk about with COVID, but I have seen it all. I could write a book of what I have seen going on. Now, the bottom line is Robert Steele, who's no longer with us, former CIA. He was a commissioner with our tribunal. He spoke a lot about the truth. Whenever you speak the truth, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I never have. I went to parochial schools to learn a hypothetical oath to tell the truth. And that's why I'm here, to tell the truth. Now, Dr. Sandra Rose introduced me to all of this. Former CIA Robert Steele has a video, and I am going to let that play in a moment here. And that will basically give you an idea of what I am going to take a kickback from this to explain to you. And we can play it now when you're ready.
I was also pleased. In my X-22 interview, I talked about some of the stuff I've learned as chief counsel. And what we're looking at is there's a system across the United States of America in which selected judges and prosecutors conspire to turn elderly people into wards of the state so that they can strip them of their wealth. And this includes drugging them so that they then become incapacitated. And this is even happening when family members are coming in and trying to take the family members back and preserve the estate. There is a looting system across this country that preys on the poor and the elderly. And that's something we're going to have to take down.
Now, basically, what did we hear out of this? Siphoning estates, okay? So what does that mean? When you follow the money, basically what you're going to do now is say that all these people have, when you get older, you work your whole life. And my father told me this years ago. He said, die broke, kid, if you're going to live in this country. Because all your money and everything that you worked for can be taken away by a system that has a guardianship where a judge can appoint a guardian. And then what they can do is, what we need to also face and deal with in this country is the fentanyl. Because the fentanyl and the intubation are the tools and the mastermind of how they're controlling all of you, okay? They take these two, and what happens? Fentanyl is so bad, I don't know why that drug's not taken off the market. It's destroying and weakening the culture and the people of this country so that people are weakened. Intubation at the same time. When you put a 10-inch tube down your throat, what happens? You're incompetent. And guess what happens when you're incompetent? They will appoint a guardian. So keep those two in mind because those are the master plans. Secondly, do you think that you have a right to do anything when this happens? No, because you're going up against the judge who put this program together. You don't have a right to sue. There's a thing called the probate exclusionary. You have no right to sue. And I'll tell you why I know this in a minute. But the bottom line is, do petitioners who go to the judges and say, and there's 2 movies you should see by producer Billy Mintz, The Guardians, and I Care a Lot by Netflix. These shows should be all over. These should be winning Oscars, but they suppress these movies. What do? A petitioner can make your mother, father, we all have parents, wards of the state. What do? They don't talk to the family to say that, do you have a family member that's taking care of them, a loved one, or anybody? This program would be perfect if it was designed for homeless people. But they found a loophole in here of how then to go after the people who may have some money in order to siphon off that estate, which you've heard Robert Steele say. They will go after that. There is no hearing with the family members. No hearing with the family members to say that they have a family. They then can petition make your parents a ward of the state, and that guardian can make life-ending decisions for your loved one. Now, the bottom line is, what do they do if you were to expose this? What happens? You will be arrested. And have been folks, there's a case out there right now with a woman that was arrested. They will take the family. They will isolate you. What else will they do? They will lock you up. I have a woman right now whose case is in the Supreme Court. She was put in and locked up, and she was a Princeton professor. That's in the Supreme Court right now. Do we hear about these cases? No. As a guardian, they take complete control, and the family has nothing that they can do. And the judges will not do anything, basically, to hear that they have a family or loved one, except for to go after them and silence them. Now, we're trying to get some bills passed to change these laws, okay? And Billy Mintz is working with me. There may be a sequel to his movie called The Guardians based on some of the information that I'm providing here, because this is a very deep topic. I'm just skimming off the top here. The bottom line is that there's also a Dr. Sam Sugar. You should read his book. He's been silenced, okay? Dr. Sam Sugar wrote a book called The Perfect Crime. Why? Because this is what it is. They found a way to take all the money that you work your whole life for in order to put you in this so that the money goes right back into the system and lines the pockets of the nursing homes. I have an uncle who was also a top military. Okay, he was actually one of the pilots that dropped the atomic bomb, a war hero. They took him, sold his properties, 10 family members, Irish Catholic. That's how I was raised too. They didn't get nothing. My father knew what they were doing though. He said, wait a minute now. There's something wrong here. They took all his money. The hospital and nursing home then, as soon as they got it, they put him in a state-run home. That's how this works. And these are the facts. I'm going to wrap it up a little bit here, but I want to say something a little bit further here, that this is a violation of our constitutional rights because we have inalienable rights in this country and our rights have been violated. They are not protecting the elderly and nobody's talking about this. And if it's the last breath I took as taken here as a nurse of 40 years, I am definitely, this is my last hurrah. I don't make a lot of things here. I'm pushing 70 years old. I'm a black belt. I'm into a lot of health and stuff. And people say, oh, you don't look like it or whatever the case may be. But I would love to see some changes in this going on right now. But I also have to say one thing. Your civil rights have been violated because in a situation which I'll show here in a minute, you even have no right to your priest. Okay? You have no right to a priest that can even anoint you. Okay? And that's what's really sad about it. You don't have a right to a priest. So all of your civil rights have been basically excluded. Now, lastly, what I'd like to say here, I don't know how many minutes do we have?
Let's go with one.
One. Okay, I'll wrap it up. The last slide, please. Oh. Now I'm going to try not to get emotional with this. And I keep telling myself, I lost my mother from this shit. Okay, I'm sorry. They took her from me. We were in Hawaii, if you can believe it. They made my mother in Hawaii, which I was going to for years, a ward of the state. She wasn't a resident. She wasn't even a resident. IRS lady, almost 90. Perfect health. They gave her 150 milligrams of fentanyl. They put her right into respiratory arrest and intubated her. I fought like hell. And I will not tell you what they did to me. It's unspeakable. I'm telling you the truth. I fought practically my whole life savings to get her out until I realized I couldn't get her out. So then I went over to Belgium. I was fighting with COVID. When I was working on COVID, I started to help other people that I saw going through the same thing. And I said to myself, something has to be happening to this. They have to do something on this. But the bottom line is, we want criminal charges. The first in history, I became a legal nurse consultant to fight for my little mother who is from Finland. And we fought and we won criminal. Thank you. And that's partly why I'm here today, because we cannot stop fighting. Now, the bottom line is we're trying to get a bill here, but I just wanted to say one other thing, which is very interesting. Do you know who made my mother a ward of the state? It was in Obama land, Hawaii. My mother was made a ward of the state. The person who filed for petition, I never met. The person was the hospital attorney where she had sprained her ankle. They intubated her for that, and they gave her 150 milligrams for a sprained ankle. I cannot make this up. It's in the civil case court. That was the hospital attorney that had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. My mother had a bounty on her head. Now, I can just end it with one thing. With what I have gone through, and thanks be to God that I have the strength to talk about this, this is shame on you and the people that have allowed this to happen. We have got to stop this. And I know that Dr. Fadul, who has my back, has a few things we'd like to say, but we have corrupted judges. Now, if you don't believe that, I was in the federal courthouse as the nurse. I was the nurse who ran the federal courthouse with all of the judges. Now, the bottom line is this. There are corrupted judges, okay? And the AG, who we have in this country now, can do something about that if we let her. Because this whole thing has to have an overhaul, which what the CIA operative had said. This needs to be brought down. And secondly, where did this money go? We have 1.3 million people. You don't know this. Look it up. It's the facts. In guardianship. So what we have to do now is get Elon Musk. Elon Musk, let him know where the money's going. Find out all these people that have their estates lost, all the money that the families lost and have paid for attorney fees. And then we got $1 trillion debt. So take that money, get them in prison, get this debt paid off, and let him finish them. Amen. I'm done.
We're done. All right. We appreciate you guys very much.
These are the facts, not put out by mainstream media. If you want to know the truth, we put out the truth every single day, Monday to Friday. So if you want to know the truth, come to charlieward.com and see real news daily. And join the Insiders Club, which is live on Wednesdays and Saturdays.